Our next story is about Nicolas Maduro, the disputed president of Venezuela. Half the world rejects his presidency, the West mostly. They say he stole the election and therefore he isn't legitimate. Maduro does not really care about that though. He is happy to irritate the West. In fact, he just took it up a notch. Maduro has threatened to quote-unquote liberate Puerto Rico from American control with the help of Brazilian troops. That's a bold thing to say. Quite the way to kick off a new presidential term. Before coming to the threat, let's look at the build-up. Maduro was just sworn in on Friday for his third consecutive term, another 6-year term as president. And this act incensed the West, the US in particular. Washington responded with the usual slew of sanctions. They added 8 more Maduro supporters to the list, bringing it up to 187 individuals. 187 supporters of Nicolas Maduro sanctioned by America. They also targeted the man of the hour himself. The US has raised the bounty on Maduro to $25 million for his arrest or conviction. They first put a bounty on Maduro back in 2020 after American courts convicted him on charges of narco-terrorism, basically for excessive drug trafficking. The US claims that Maduro intentionally sends drugs to their country to destabilize it. The courts even referred to Maduro as a cartel member, and they put out a $15 million bounty for his arrest. Now that bounty has been increased to $25 million. But let's face it, it's not like the amount was the problem there. The problem is, how do you arrest someone with an army?
La Fuerza Armada Nacional Bolivariana.
The Bolivarian National Armed Forces expressed their most vigorous and categorical rejection of the new sanctions imposed by the infamous Imperial Brotherhood. Today, the Office of Foreign Assets Control of the U.S. Department of the Treasury, along with the European Union and the United Kingdom, attacked Venezuelan state officials, including our commander-in-chief.
The
Venezuelan army seems firmly behind Maduro. They even took a dig at Western countries, calling them an Imperial Brotherhood. Now, this is a well-known line of attack. Maduro and his followers claim that the West is determined to colonize the rest of the world and they hate him because he resists. Now, to his credit, the colonization argument is a good one. The US just imposed more sanctions on Venezuela, but guess what they did not sanction this time around? Venezuelan oil.
Why was this administration hesitant to apply further sanctions to the oil and gas industry there?
That's still being investigated in terms of what impact it would have and whether or not it would just be replaced by Iran or any other country. So it matters what would happen afterwards. I had a long discussion again with the man who should be appointed president on that score, but since I didn't have a clear answer to what that would be, if I had more time, I may very well do that, but I didn't have enough data to make that judgment.
Biden did not sanction Venezuelan oil. He has passed the buck to Donald Trump, the incoming president. It is not a great look, and it gives weight to Maduro's claims of imperialism. So the Venezuelan decided to double down. Yesterday, he was at the International Anti-Fascist World Festival. It is being held in his own country, with delegates from 125 countries, some 2,000 people in all. Maduro took to the stage and played to the crowd. This is what he said: "The freedom of Puerto Rico is pending, and we will achieve it with the forces of Brazil." Interestingly, Brazil has not said a word about this. Maduro was basically pandering to his audience. He spoke about a famous Brazilian general who helped Simón Bolívar liberate Colombia and Venezuela. So the Brazil bit was just to hype up the crowd. But it was an interesting threat nonetheless. Maduro said that the liberation of Puerto Rico is pending. Puerto Rico is a US territory, as you would know, not a state, but an unincorporated territory. Puerto Ricans are citizens of the United States of America. They have been since 1917 for more than 100 years, but they are second-class citizens. They cannot vote in the US presidential elections. Puerto Rico does not have proper representation in the US Congress. just a token observer with no voting powers. As a fig leaf, some people on the island do not pay federal income tax. Some people, not all. And that's just income tax. All Puerto Ricans pay other taxes and custom duties, and they are subject to laws passed by the US. So effectively, Puerto Rico is a modern-day American colony. The US says that this is what Puerto Ricans want. The island has held multiple referendums, and Washington says they chose to maintain the status quo. But that's not entirely accurate. Puerto Rico rejected US statehood up until the late 1990s, but it has held more plebiscites since, and a majority of the people have voted for full US statehood. In 2020, it was a clear-cut 52%. Last year, it was even higher at 56%. It is evident that younger generations want Puerto Rico to become a full state, but somehow Washington has always found excuses to avoid this, to keep the island in some semi-autonomous limbo. It is textbook colonialism. Maduro is correct about that. But his threat to invade, to liberate Puerto Rico, is hollow. He's not sending his army anywhere. It is too much risk at a time when there's still a lot of resistance to his presidency at home. And to be clear, the US would decimate the Venezuelan forces if they entered Puerto Rico. But even though Maduro was probably joking, he raised an important point. How long will Puerto Rico stay in limbo? How long until they are granted true equality? Until the US rectifies this international embarrassment, opponents of the West will always be able to highlight the hypocrisy.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.